up on like some milestone or anything. This is our 59th episode of the show, so we did miss the 50th. But 59, that's quite a bit. It doesn't feel like we've been doing it that long. I guess it's been 2 years now, hasn't it, John? Or a year and a half or something?
Like a year and a half, I think.
Yeah, but how have y'all been doing? Are y'all traveling anywhere for the holidays, or just sitting around? John's sitting in his music studio that looks like a bomb exploded, so I know where he's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not traveling anywhere. I live down by my family now, so just heading to my wife's family for Thanksgiving morning, and then my family for Thanksgiving night. And that's all we really got going on.
John,
Heard
are you going to
that.
West Virginia?
I usually go to West Virginia. We had planned to go to West Virginia. Some things happened. I guess we're just going to stay here this year. This is going to be the first time we stayed in North Carolina for Thanksgiving. We normally stay Christmas and New Year's, but we're going to just stay around the house. Steph's going to cook and going to have one at the house for once. So,
How's that going to be? Can Steph cook?
oh
I can't
yes,
remember. I can't remember a time I've been at your house where I've got a legitimate like cooking of a meal.
yeah. I guess we always had went out when you come over. Yeah, she cooks. It's usually busy. We usually are just on the run all the time with between Cam and music and uh, work. So, but yeah, when we're at the house, she cooks and she's gonna cook Thanksgiving. We're deep frying a turkey this year, and
So
she
you're going to burn the house down.
correct, exactly. We're gonna burn the house down, and she's gonna make a bunch of salads and stuff. So it'll be
You're
pretty
going to do
good.
that outside. You're not doing it inside, are you? You're
No, no,
outside.
no, no.
I'm
We're
about to
doing
say
outside.
don't. I was about to say don't do it inside. You really will burn the house down.
No, we're doing outside. We have a little back patio, and yeah, we got backyard. We're going to do it in. So our canopy tent broke. It's we had it for a couple years, but so I tore it down. So we just have the patio now, and just got our grill and got our table out there for when people come over. But gonna probably not gonna have a canopy tent by the time it Thursday rolls around, but uh, plan on putting one back up in the near future. But it's supposed to be warm, so should be fun, and won't have to be tired from running to West Virginia or here or there. Just stay at the house, relax, eat a lot of food, take a lot of naps.
Yeah, you better get the turkey like thawing. I feel like a lot of people forget to put it out to unthaw, and then it's like still frozen on Thursday.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, I don't know how it happened, but I guess in North Carolina they don't really have Kroger's, but as you know, here we have Kroger. Carmen was on like the Kroger like app where you get your points or whatever last night, and they were giving out like free turkeys. So like we're going to West Virginia to like my parents for dinner, but we're still collecting our free turkey that Kroger's giving us.
Hey, might as well collect. You know what I'm
It's it's
saying?
it's a small one. I think it's only up to like $15, which isn't very much, but hey, it's something.
That's right.
Yeah. But yep, we do have a show for you guys today. I don't know exactly what all we're going to talk about. I have a few topics down. Hopefully, you guys have some topics. But we can hop right into it. Fat Baby, what are we learning about today?
I was going to talk about operating leverage and how you can use that to look at a P&L. And really what I mean by operating leverage is as you start to grow your business, do you have to add the same amount of headcount? If your business is growing 20%, do you have to add 20% to your headcount? Or if your business is growing, your sales are growing by 20%, can you only add 5% to your headcount? Because if you're able to get that gap, then that's a sign of operating leverage in your business, and your financials can really start to take off. So a red flag for me when I'm reviewing financials is seeing that OPEX growth is faster than sales growth. So if OPEX is growing at 10%, sales are growing at 5%, that's a red flag to me that something odd is going on in the business. Sometimes you have to zoom out a little bit because there are a lot of oddities in a quarter or even a year. So sometimes it's best to look at 2-year rates when you're looking at this. But it's definitely something I take a look at is the operating leverage. And a big part of it, if you start to get into the accounting behind it, is fixed cost versus variable cost. So your fixed costs are what you can leverage as you start to grow. So if you think about this for Tesla, it could be all their robotics. They might be able to leverage that fixed cost more than other manufacturers who are using more manual, human-driven processes. So if you're able to automate things, a lot of times you're able to have more operating leverage because you don't have to quite have a 1-for-1 sales to headcount, sales to OpEx growth ratio. You can really grow faster than that, which is really powerful financially because then the sales dollars you make fall more to EBITDA than if you had low operating leverage.
Yeah, makes sense. So again, like we've talked about in the last few episodes, this is one of the things that you would look at secondary before you decide, I guess, to make your investment. You would look at this as with everything else with a lot of other things. But, we just had COVID, right? A lot of companies were shut down for a year. What would you do? Would you kind of ignore, say, like how many employees and stuff they had during this year? Or is that something you would want to factor in? Or would it be like, you looked at the last 10 years, would you just kind of omit 2019?
Yeah, so COVID can wreak havoc on a lot of businesses because what happened during COVID was a lot of companies went on hiring freezes. So they stopped hiring everyone from March 2020 through October 2020. Then all of a sudden, with sales started to take back off in July of 2020. And all of a sudden they couldn't hire enough people. So people are frantically sort of trying to hire people, but they can't stay on top of it. So it's definitely a weird time because there's going to come a time when the labor market starts to shift and there's going to be people being able to fill all their open positions that they haven't been able to, which could lead to a big influx in salaries growth, things like that in the OpEx lines. So you really just, to me, it's zoom out 2 or 3 years because that's going to tell the real story. Sometimes you can see some crazy stuff in an individual quarter or even in an individual year. But when you start to look over 2 or 3 years, you're not going to see too much crazy stuff. And ideally, they're talking about what's happening on those in the management calls, explaining, hey, this is going to temper back down. Our headcount has been extraordinarily low. So that's what you'll see sometimes. If you see a massive reduction in OpEx, sometimes there's a surge back in the future. And so you just have to watch out for that. And I don't judge businesses too much for that, but I do judge a business if they're not able to really scale efficiently over the long term.
Yeah, so this is a callback to a recent episode. What's your thoughts regarding, the operating leverage of, say, Zillow, where they're cutting the buying, what they were cutting like a quarter of their staff or whatever. What are your thoughts regarding only operating leverage kind of on, say, a company like Zillow that does something similar to that?
And so what Zillow said all the time is iBuying is just a hard business to be in, and it's a very balance sheet heavy business and a very intense business overall. So 20% of Zillow's worth or whatever wasn't in iBuying. That's the majority of their money was not coming from iBuying. They really weren't making any money off of it. So financially, to be able to go down 20% of your headcount when that business is only losing you money is like a real clear financial win in the short term. There's all the long-term benefits, the long-term cost of it, and that iBuying could be the future. But it does show that the the core IMT business of Zillow does have a lot of operating leverage, but iBuying did not. And so that's where it's interesting when you look at companies like Zillow who have different sectors. You can sort of tell that sometimes some of their sectors have more operating leverage than others do.
Do you have any other companies, off the top of your head that you've looked at recently that either have, like, you would say really good operating leverage, or the opposite of that, I guess, really bad, like way too many employees and not enough sales, or whatever the case, either one of those cases?
Yeah, so one that is sort of sticking out right now is Peloton. It's pretty clear that the way Peloton was scaling, they showed to have a lot of operating leverage in their business with their whole subscription base. Think about it sort of like Netflix. Netflix, they should be able to bring on a new user very easily without necessarily adding headcount because they can leverage their pre-existing content. Peloton should be able to do the same thing, but as their subscription business kept growing, their headcounts kept growing pretty substantially as well. So normally you would expect slower growth in the SG&A lines, but in Peloton you weren't seeing that. So it was a financial red flag, especially when the tides changed and all of a sudden their growth wasn't there anymore. All of a sudden they're burning cash really fast. So it's definitely something that to keep an eye on, especially in hyper growth companies. When you're looking at it, ask yourself if the tides changed and the growth went away quickly, are they able to quickly react? I know Peloton put out hiring freeze, all that kind of stuff, but it's good to watch because a lot of these companies get a little loose with their money when everything's flowing so good.
Yeah, it sounds like you want to be looking at a company where the employees wear a lot of hats so they can cut down on how many people they have. John, do you have any comments or questions regarding operating leverage?
No, seems straightforward.
Okay, Pat, maybe you have anything else to add before we move on?
No.
All right. Well, with that, John's going to tell us about how the market's been performing. I know Tech's been getting killed out there. But John, you can tell us some of the statistics regarding trends for the week for 2 weeks.
Let's see here. Operating a few different things. Let's see. Let's see if. Hang on just a second. Get this out of the way. Okay. I think we have it up there. Well, I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm trying to operate a few different things. Screen sharing is not enabled, but I have it up for the video on my end, but you guys won't be able to see it. But anyways, yeah, looking at the VIX has been elevated since we had that nice run up in November the 4th. Markets kind of pulled back a little bit, or been choppy more than really pulled back, and VIX is elevated. It's currently 1938. If we look at the S&P 500 index, we've just been kind of back and forth here, not really going higher since that initial top around the beginning of November. The last few days trading ahead of the holiday that's coming up has been very choppy. We've seen some action with Jerome Powell being nominee again, or nominated again for the head chairman of the Fed. We have the 10-year Treasury note index ripped the last 3 days to the upside. For anyone holding bonds, that's not been a good play there. And we had oil. Oil has been on a steady decline. It had some pretty hard sell-off days, as you can see here. But we've had a pretty good up day today to bounce off those lows. I know I've been playing oil quite a bit, been trading it better than I've probably traded anything in the last probably 6 months. It's been really good markets. A lot of back and forth intraday, and it's not just been a straight decline from the top, from the cycle top. So good trading in there. The dollar has kind of been on a tear the last month. It's seen higher and higher highs, so that's something interesting to see with everything that's going on in the world with money printing and central banks going crazy. The small precious metals that has majority of gold, a little bit of silver, and a little bit of platinum in it. It's sold off very heavy the last 4 days of trading. It's a futures products by the small exchange that we like there. We also have Bitcoin. It shot way up there to around 70,000, just under 70,000, but now we've seen it trade down to 57, as low as 55.5, somewhere in that area. Had a big sell off. I think a lot of people are looking to see that rebound and go back towards higher highs, especially with the speculation that's been going on in the market. There's a futures index with that has some companies and more diversified. It's sold off. It's pretty highly correlated to Bitcoin itself, as is the rest of the crypto space. Is pretty all correlated as far as which direction everything's moving, is pretty in tandem there together. This is a trade that I had on for a little while. It started to go for me, and now it's just been getting slammed again. That's the small cannabis equity index. I just stopped myself out of this. It's a cheap play on equities. It started to move higher, but then it broke the previous low, and so I went ahead and cut my losses there. The VIX, which we already covered, but if you want to buy shares of the VIX, VXX, it's been moving higher even with its decay. UVXY still been moving higher even with its even greater decay. And as you know, with UVX going higher, SVXY, which is short volatility, has been heading lower. So we've been seeing elevated levels of volatility in the S&P 500 and broad markets, seeing bonds rip higher, oil down. Is this signaling something worse to come? I don't think that it is, but it could be. So we'll keep monitoring these key levels. Usually, oil and the overall stock market usually move in the same direction. So it's important to look at oil here to see if it's kind of signaling something or discounting something in the future. We don't know as far as that goes right now. It's kind of too early to tell, but definitely something to keep your eyes on as volatility starts to get bid. And that's the market update.
Yeah, tech's been getting killed a little bit, except for like Apple. Fat Baby, do you have any thoughts on how the market's been performing recently, or you know, you maintain all your thoughts from previous weeks?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely some blood out there, a lot of red overall, especially in a lot of the higher price stocks. But overall, it's just what I've been seeing in the past weeks. It's that there's a lot of unknown out there. People are starting to get a little scared. It's not quite the greed that we've seen historically, but that probably means it's a good buying time. But it's hard to tell in the short moves of the market.
Yeah, and I wonder. I would think that there's probably some, in the option market without looking, in the option market, or even like some short-term traders, that sort of stuff, that probably are, looking to dump some stuff prior to the holiday. Because what is it, half day on Friday, off on Thursday?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, I
it's
actually have.
weird. It's weird that there's a half day on Friday. I feel like it would have made sense just to be no Thursday, no Friday. John, what did you have?
So we'll go ahead and just come back to me whenever you're ready. I don't know if you're wanting a certain order of discussion, but I thought of something that I want to go over.
Well, I don't really have a certain order, so let's do it.
So I had heard that we had released Biden releasing oil from a strategic petroleum reserve.
You'll have to fill me in. I don't know what you're talking about.
So basically, he released oil into the market, 50 million barrels to be released into the market that the United States had on reserve, from my understanding. And if he releases this oil on the market, the thought is that this extra oil being released into the market will help drive the price of oil down. But what we've seen is oil had been bid I mean, it's been going lower before this announcement. So there's kind of thoughts of insider trading going on from government, different seats in government, driving prices down. But that's kind of a speculation on what's going on. But Biden released, they're planning to release 50 million barrels of oil to help increase the supply, which would drive oil down, which would hopefully drive gas prices down. But 50 million sounds like a lot, but when in the grand scheme of things, 50 million barrels is really not that much. So we'll see how it affects the market, but could be a catalyst to drive prices a little lower from where they're at already.
Any thought there on it kind of being there's some suspicious stuff happening. Like you said, you would think the prices would go down, but it's already kind of going down. Do you think there was, did he scare anyone by threatening, to have the FTC or whatever probe suspicious activity already in that industry?
Yeah, I think, we've had a lot of crazy things happen with oil in the last couple of years as far as we've seen prices in oil go negative for the first time on record, or at least that in our lifespan, for that matter, goes as far as that I know. But yeah. Anytime you have an industry this large, there's going to be some bad actors in these markets. I would say that this has been leaked somehow prior to some people, and that's why we've seen a pretty heavy decline in oil. It was around, if I bring up oil here one more time, just since we're talking about it, it was around $83, $84 a barrel. And we had a sell off all the way to 74. So a $10 move in oil, which is a significant move. I mean, they've been more movement, especially in the midst of the pandemic. But that's a $10 move before the news came out. And on the news, we actually seen a rally back. So it's almost signaling as if this was already known knowledge that was in the market. Because generally, when news like this comes out, especially 50 million, like I said, 50 million is not like as much as you would think when you hear 50 million. I mean, it's still a decent size, but on news like this, typically bad news like this, you would see oil sell off on the news. So because it didn't sell off on the news, it kind of signals that there's some funny business going on, and maybe someone was paid and tipped off prior, which it would make sense. I mean, you could probably make a lot of money telling your oil buddies what was going to happen before it happened. So that's kind of my thoughts on the situation. A $10 move before the news even comes out is pretty insane, if you ask me. And I don't trade news by no means, and that's probably why you shouldn't. That's probably a good reason why not to trade news on that level, because you don't know what's already been priced in the market to that extent.
Yeah, and that's kind of the old saying is once it's news, it's pretty
It's
much
yeah, it's already
everyone
over.
everyone who has any importance that can move the market already knew about it prior to that news being released.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any thoughts on the releasing the barrels from the reserve? I assume at some point we'll have to put those barrels back in the reserve. Do you see any effects from that, or will it be we'll add those back once there's enough oil in the market already where it wouldn't have an impact?
Um, I don't know if we had built up our reserves bigger, just because of since COVID, or what the reserve level was prior to this. Um, I know that.
It couldn't be that high, right? Because we had that pipeline shut down from them hackers, and it was a big issue on the southeast.
Right. Yeah, we did. He did shut that down. So, yeah, I mean, I would say we have. We probably don't have anything left after this as far as reserves go. I was trying to look up some more information here on it, but it's kind of early to really judge what's going to go on. I know that generally when you start to have inflation and the economy is heating up and you start to see speculation like we've had, oil does very well. Generally, I would just say, stick with oil. But this time around, and with a lot of things, are different just because COVID has been such an impact to the standard ways of doing things, and just the flow of everything has been, supply chain issues and everything that's going on. So it's a little different. It's kind of hard to judge this one. But I would say it wouldn't surprise me if oil continued to do well, and this was just something that's short term that's going to pass, and oil is going to head to 90. That's my initial assumption, but it's kind of hard. It's a hard one to do. It's something that don't really have a lot of conviction behind pulling the trigger on that right now.
I got you. Fat Baby, do you have any thoughts on oil? I know that's probably not your category there.
No, no. The only thing I'm confused on is I thought oil had a limited shelf life. Like there's something in like the way they shift oil to from petroleum to what goes into the cars that has a limited shelf life. So I don't understand how we could have so much in reserves. But I really don't know.
It might be like kind of what John said. Was it sounds like a lot, but it's probably not. We're talking about like drums of oil. That's not really all that much.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not sure on that either as far as that goes. I mean, I would think that my initial assumption is that it would, it's something that we extract, and I don't know. Well, I'm not really sure to be honest, but I do. It could be one of the things where we're going to keep this much in our vault, but we are continually rotating the stock or something, or it could just be that the shelf life is long enough that it isn't really going to cause a problem with the stock that you have. So I don't know. That's something that we'll definitely look into and get back to on the show later on.
Sounds like a good question for your father.
Right.
But do you have anything else on this, or
No.
you good? All right, so I guess we can jump into some of the news of the week. John already mentioned the first one, Jerome Powell being named for another term as the chairman of the Federal Reserve. I don't really have any thoughts on that. I don't keep up too much with. I don't even know who was the other options. But do you guys have any thoughts on having Jerome Powell be the chairman again? Likes, dislikes, or any direction you could see from him being named chairman again? Yeah.
Yeah, just the printer goes burr. I mean, that's it. That seems to be his mantra or whatever, and on the internet makes fun of him for. So I think it's sort of going to be a continued what it is with a lot of money printing, slow pullback on interest rates eventually, but no big changes fast. So probably good for the markets overall. Long term, who knows? But
yeah, do you guys keep up with kind of like government officials like that? I wouldn't even have known who else they would pick to run that. Who else was in the conversation?
No, I don't follow politics or the news that close as I used to. I've become a better investor by not listening to the news and not focusing on politics as how it relates, because most of it after you find out it's already passed, like you said before. So I definitely try to stay out of it because it clogs my thoughts and doesn't let me make clear decisions when I am making trades or investments. So I'd rather not hear about the oil being released because now it's kind of in my head. But doing the show, I mean, being more aware of what's going on in the world helps too, as far as just, being an aware person. But yeah, I mean, I try to stay away from it as much as I can. It seems to do better for my investments.
What about Lael Brannard or whatever? Fat Baby, do you have any thoughts on her?
No, not really. I mean, I don't really keep up with all the politics, all that kind of fun stuff, and really that's what all that stuff is.
Yeah, same here. I don't know. I don't keep up with it too much, except for if we're messing around on predicted or something. That Powell getting another term seems like something we should have looked at a few months ago on predicted. John, I think we missed the
Yeah,
boat
I
there.
thought I had made a trade on there. I'm actually looking at my predicted account now, and I cannot find it. So
So probably not. Okay. The next story I have, I don't know if you guys saw today. Basically, in Ohio, a court found that CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens were responsible for part of the opioid crisis, in Ohio, and they're going to have to pay out. I don't know the exact number. It might have been like $1 billion, which that doesn't sound. I don't think that sounds like that big of a deal as far as it's like one case in Ohio. I think Rite Aid was also in it, but they settled. It doesn't sound to me. It doesn't sound like a big deal with one case in Ohio, but the bigger deal of it is this is the first time that a drug company, something like CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, whatever, has not settled a case and went all the way through the trial and then was found guilty and owed the money or whatever. I think it sets a precedent for it because this hasn't happened before. So now, we have a huge opioid crisis in America, especially where you and I are from, John, or the Appalachia area. This to me, not for Walmart. Walmart's a huge company. I don't know if it'll have a big effect on them. But, if other states start, it set a precedent. So if they start doing the same thing in other states, all of a sudden I could see, CVS and Walgreens owing a lot of money, in these lawsuits. I think that could be a pretty big deal for those two companies. You guys got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be. I think broader, it's sort of interesting to think, is this kind of stuff where companies being held responsible for, and I don't know the details of the case, but I don't see the direct line between the epidemic and the CVS. I get that they're giving it out, but I don't know if they're the ones writing the prescriptions. So to
They're
me,
so they're not, and that was the big argument. And I actually kind of agree with you as well as them. And their argument was, basically they were the ones sued for, I guess they said recklessly handing out opioid prescriptions, but their argument was we're not the ones writing the prescriptions. We just fill whatever the prescription is that's written by a medical doctor that comes in here. So I'm on the same boat. Their job is to fill the prescriptions if it has been written by a doctor. Now, if they were filling fake prescriptions that people were forging, that changes things. That's on them for not realizing fake stuff. But they're just filling prescriptions from a like legitimate licensed medical doctor. I don't see how it's on them. What are they going to do? Like a person comes in from the doctor, prescribed an opioid. Is CVS going to be like, no, we've handed out too many of these recently. We're not doing that. I mean, I tend to agree. I don't know how it's necessarily their fault, but I feel like they are the easier ones to sue in the matter because it'd be a lot harder to go find all the doctors and sue them. But
yeah, like the individual doctors or something. Yeah, it can't. I don't see how it could be their fault. I mean, like you said, I mean, it's the professional's fault for writing it, not.
yeah, they're just doing their job as filling it. I think they were. Again, I didn't read the whole court case. I just read a couple articles, but yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't know what they would even do. Like, how would they turn down? It'd be hard for them to turn down prescription because if a doctor wrote the prescription, now I don't know if they made this argument or not. If a doctor wrote the prescription and say CVS was like, "No, you've got too many here. We're not going to fill that." Well, the doctor already signed off on the prescription. They'll call the doctor back and be like, oh, CVS won't fill it. Can you write it to Walgreens or wherever? I mean, they can just change pharmacies. I mean, the CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, they're the ones that have the pockets to pay out the money, is why they probably was the one sued. It's kind of like when people get lung cancer and then sue Marlboro for selling them cigarettes. It's like,
Right.
I mean, it's the exact same thing. It's like, well, we told you, but I don't know. But I do think it could be a big deal if other states start doing the same thing to like companies like CVS, Walgreens.
Yeah, and I think if you zoom out and take a look at it and start to apply the same methodology to some of the tech companies, to Facebook, to Twitter, to even beyond the social media companies, to some of the Apple, Google, things could start getting wild if you start making the leap from, well, they're distributing it, so they're part of the problem, so they're going to have to pay some of the consequence.
Yeah, this is the same thing as like if someone's getting bullied or someone posted a post on Facebook and then people in the comments were mean to them and then they sued Facebook for them getting bullied on Facebook. I mean, it's not really
a public forum. I mean,
yeah, it's not really Facebook's fault. It's the exact same conversation. I think the big deal here, and again, it could go away, but they could get a lot more suits, is that from what I've read, there's never been like a drug company like this in a case similar to this not settle to actually go through with the entire case. They went through with the whole thing, and then they kind of got the blame for it. Like the tech stuff, if you sue Facebook and you have any sort of legitimate argument or even like not a non-legitimate argument, what's the chances that Facebook is going to go all the way through the trial? I mean, it's easier for them to pay you a couple $1 million and wash their hands with it. I think that's kind of have been the same here, but it could change now. And I think the tech companies could probably afford a little bit more than, like a CVS or somewhere. I don't know. It's interesting. Another news story today, and honestly, it's not that big of a news story, but I did think it was interesting. I don't remember the last time I've been in one of these, but Dollar Tree announced they're raising their prices from $1 to $1.25, which I know people's going to, and they said they did a study back in the summer. Customers didn't really mind, and shareholders loved it, and it's clearly good for shareholders. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think about it, that's a 25% price hike across the board. 25% is that's a humongous hike. And from a consumer, like people going in Dollar Tree buying a thing or two, again, I don't know who still goes in Dollar Tree, maybe like my grandma or someone like that. But
hey, I get my snacks at Dollar Tree now. Watch out now.
Well, they're $1.25 now. You're gonna have to fork out another quarter. But
hey, you got to remember. Listen, I'm cheap.
I know you're cheap, but yeah. So I mean, it's across the board a 25% raise that people probably won't think too much about. I mean, whether they pay $1 or $1.25, I don't. I wouldn't put bad at it, but in the grand scheme of things, that could really help their profit margin, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one here is a lot of people look at money nominally and not in percentage terms. I know for me, I look at everything in percent, but that's because I'm constantly investing or trading. So I think, managing money, it's easier to look at things in percent terms because once your money gets bigger and bigger, you're not looking at the nominal value to make decisions because, that's a lot of money. You just start looking at it percentages, so that kind of helps a little bit. But a lot of people look at things nominally, and like you said, paying $1 or $1.25, people might not mind as much for that just because it's only a quarter. But like you said, in the grand scheme of things, 25% increase is a big increase in profits.
Especially when everything in the store is the same price. So the interesting thing I thought about the article was they said it had nothing to do with inflation, which may or may not.
Clearly it does.
Who knows?
Clearly it does.
Hold on. I thought
for
that
sure
earlier. I
does.
actually don't. Hold on. I don't think it is as much anymore. I think they're actually using it as a back. They're using it as a back door. They're doing it it seems like they've been testing it for a while, like over a year. Like they've been like doing focus groups and stuff for like a while. I think they've always been into they were going to do it. I think they're doing it at a time where inflation is high, so they could possibly use the inflation thing, to make the justification to do it where people don't really bat an eye too much because everything is going up. So why wouldn't this go up? Their argument was saying so they could offer more products. They're basically like, if we raise it a quarter, we can offer more products. Which honestly, they can't offer that many more products by raising it only a quarter. But my thoughts are, if you think about that, they say they can offer more products if they raise everything to $1.25. They're not, but the thing is, they're not raising just a couple of products to $1.25. They're raising everything to $1.25. So if we think about that, say they're able to offer 25 new products if they raise the price to $1.25. So they got 25 new products. Well, they already sell 200 products in the store. Think about the difference in cost there. So those 20 products that cost a little bit more than manufacturer, sure, they're not making any profit there because that's how much it costs. They're offering the products at $1.25. But every other product in the store that doesn't cost that to make, they just made a quarter extra on.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing it at a time during inflation, kind of to so people don't question.
I mean, the dollars went down.
I think it's
year after year after year. I think this is definitely because inflation. Like if you look at places like Five Below, they've started offering even before this. They started offering like a 15 and under rack or something like that, and eventually their stores will increase prices across the board as well. I mean, I just think that over time, it's just only going to continue to go up just because of inflation. I mean, their profit margins have to be getting squeezed because of inflation over time. I mean, so
I don't know how much you know about Dollar Tree as far as the stock. It went up $12 a share, 9% on this news today. So obviously the stock market likes it, which if you have any brain at all, they just made a 25%, higher. So let's say
I thought they already had news out about this before. Didn't we talk about this before?
We didn't talk about this. Maybe we talked about this when they were testing it. Maybe they put out news that we're thinking about this. This was today that this came out.
Well, shit, if I knew it was going to rise again on the same news, I would have bought it. I swear I already heard about this.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it went up, $12 today.
Damn, that would have been some nice calls.
Dollar Tree is they're sitting at a 20 on PE ratio, so not terrible, not great, but not terrible.
It's probably better than most things. It's better than these. It's better than a lot of tech companies.
Yeah, of course, it's not a growth stock. It's still a brick and mortar company, so maybe 20 is kind of high because what else are they? I mean, where do they go? They're just selling stuff they're selling the same shit at $1.25, basically.
I like those businesses better, and I like the non-profiting. We might be able to do something in the future companies.
Maybe, but some of the companies actually are going to, probably turn out to be pretty good. I don't know so my thing, and it's always been the same about Dollar General, I don't know what you can buy for $1 to be worth anything besides like what you said, like candy or snacks or something. Like, I can't imagine going in Dollar Tree and buying really anything else.
Have you ever looked at their book section? It's funny. It's like oversold books. So like books that they printed too much of. So when you go there, they have some pretty funny ones, like Jalen Rose's autobiography for a while was there. They'd have like 40 copies of it that they sell for $1. So they're like giving away these books. So you'll find some real random books in their book section that are pretty great.
That's funny.
John, let's get your music theory book in Dollar Tree.
Hey, where is that thing at?
Fat Baby, you got any? What's your thoughts on Dollar Tree or the whole situation?
Hey, this thing way worth more than $1, boy, right here. Let me tell you.
It costs way more than that to print it.
Oh yeah. Hey, this is high quality information. You didn't have this wasn't around when I was trying to teach you. It might be way better now. You never know.
Well, print me one and send it to me.
I can PDF it to you.
That's fine. Even better.
Boom.
I don't have room on my bookshelf anyhow. My wife only gave me one shelf. We have a huge ass bookshelf in our living room, and I get one shelf. That's mine. So we're getting
life of being married, my friend.
Of course, half my bookshelf is Virginia Tech football signed by like Bud Foster and Frank Bender. So I'm probably not using my space wisely, but to me,
most of mine are Guitar World magazines.
Yeah. All right, Fat Baby. What's your thoughts on Dollar Tree?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It had to happen eventually. Right now, they can hide behind the cover of inflation. I think it's always funny when the stock market reacts this way, though, because I don't know if it was necessarily obvious, because it's not great for consumers. So that's where a lot of times stock market loves things that aren't great for the consumers, but the consumers are eventually going to react to it, because a 25% increase, you think people are going to react to that. People are going to see that, and they're going to see that, and they might buy less. So it's not like I'd expect their sales to go up by 25% just because, even though it's the difference between $1 and $1.25.
Yeah, see, I don't think so. So we're all sitting around as financial people thinking that. I bet if I sent my wife into Dollar Tree, it would not make one difference whether it's $1 or $1.25.
I was thinking about this as well.
I mean, somebody might give somebody might give a curse word or something to the lady, like, what the hell? But I don't think it's going to discourage that much from buying it.
Well, I was driving down the road.
I'm with you. I don't think it's going to go up 25%, but I could see maybe like 10%, 12% range, right?
So I was driving down the road, and I was having I was having a conflict inside of myself. The Dollar Tree person, the person that buys from Dollar Tree, I get my snacks there, all my junk food. And then my financial person was like, this is terrible. Why would the stock go up? And then the Dollar Tree person to me was like, well, where else are you going to buy cheap snacks? So, I mean, it was like, half of me was like, this ain't that big a deal. And the other half of me was like screaming, that's like what Chris said, a 25% increase. So I don't really know. I kind of got a lot of mixed feelings about it. I know that I'm probably still going to go to the Dollar Tree and buy the same amount of shit. And honestly, I can afford more expensive stuff. I'm just cheap. So, I mean, it's still cheaper than an alternative. So I'm still probably going to go there, and regardless of,
yeah, 25% increase is still we're still talking $1.25. So those snacks are still cheaper than the gas station or wherever else you're going to get
convenience store, you're going to pay double that for a candy bar. You can still get a whole box of candy for $1.25. I'm still going to go there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an odd situation. What do y'all think about Dollar General? Them sons of bitches are popping up all over the place.
I hate them motherfuckers. They put one on the moon last week.
Did they? Or no, that was a joke. I thought. It wouldn't surprise me. Like, I don't know.
I mean, like that's how crazy it is that it was almost believable. Like you were about to believe that because they're ever fucking weird. It's part of my language.
I don't know if it's like that everywhere, but like West Virginia, you could literally drive like 2 miles and there'll be another Dollar General. Like there's one in the town where my parents live, and I say town, it's not a town. It's the middle of nowhere with the ski resort. And there's a Dollar General now. There's one gas station.
There's like one every 7 miles back home, I think.
A lot of people say it's a good company to invest in.
But, fuck Dollar General. I mean, they compete with my parents.
Well, yeah, but your parents are trying to get out anyway.
Yeah, true that.
Pat Baby, what's your thoughts on Dollar General?
Yeah, I mean, where I used to live, it was funny. There was a Dollar General. It was the closest store to me, and the second closest store to me was another Dollar General. So it's just sort of crazy when you see them. But their financials are sort of nice, and clearly they found a business model that's working, that's low cost. But I don't know. I'm just not a fan of it. It just seems like, I don't know. I can't follow it to see how they're going to continue outperforming, because at a certain point you're going to run out of places to put stores.
Well, I think one thing that they do that is I don't know much about their like management or anything else. Whoever's idea I think it was, I feel like they put Dollar Generals in the places that nobody else will put a store. So like I said, where my parents live, there was no other stores, and now there's a Dollar General. All of a sudden, that's great for every single person that's like kind of in that area. And I feel like they tend to do that. They put Dollar Generals in places where there's nothing else at, which it's working. Looking at their stock, like you mentioned, their financials, they're at like a 21 PE ratio, so they're about the same. The one thing I've never understood about Dollar General is they ain't nothing in there that's $1. There's like, everything in there is like $20, $15. Like I don't understand the Dollar General part of it.
3 days after we colonized Mars.
Yep.
Dollar General.
It's crazy, man. The next thing I have, and I just saw this wasn't big news or anything. I just thought it was interesting. There was a story, I think it was from the Wall Street Journal, I don't know, on Apple. Basically, Apple came out with like a little cloth that you like wipe your accessories off for, and they're selling it for $19. It's like little tiny like glasses cloth looking thing. But they kind of asked somebody at Apple, and they kind of got into it. Apple basically sells nothing for under $19. Like that's like their motto for accessories. That's like one of their favorite numbers for accessories. And they gave like a bunch of reasonings on it. It's like a price that, if you're buying an $800 iPhone, most people don't even look like adding $19 to the cart. It's kind of like gets swept under the rug, so you can sell stuff more because what you're buying is so much. But then also they were like, people come, they want to buy, something that makes them feel good about themselves, like a more uppity item. So by buying, this like cheap accessory for $19, it kind of like they'll pay that because they're thinking they're getting higher quality, when in reality it's the same. And then they're like, if we sell it for too cheap, you get labeled as cheap. If you sell it for more than, if you sell it for more than $20, you get labeled as expensive. So they kind of found that $19 is like a sweet spot, for both rich people and poor people, because poor people want to buy up but can only afford so much. Rich people, they want to spend less, save money, but so 19's not too expensive. I don't know, it was an odd article to read. It kind of, to me, it sounded like they were outing themselves a little bit. I mean, if people got a hold of that, to me, the article is basically saying some of this shit ain't worth $19, but we can sell it for $19 because we figured this out. I thought that was an interesting article, to say the least. Apple's been killing it recently, so.
Yep, they're taking over.
Yep.
I still have not bought any Apple product in my life, and I will die before I do so.
I hate Apple products too. Back when I was in high school, I guess we switched to some company, and I had an iPhone. It was okay. But I hated Apple computers growing up. I feel like they were like they were way worse than like a standard like HP or Dell computer. Safari, like they're making up their own internets and shit like that. I don't know. I've never been much on Apple products either. So that's just me. I do own Apple stock. So I got a couple thousand in Apple stock, which
I'll die first. You'll have to bear me.
Well, I mean, it's up to like 160, and I got it way cheaper than that. So,
well, you're doing good, my friend. But hats off to you.
And I wrote this one down for Fat Baby, basically, because I know he loves Spotify. And maybe your favorite. Is that your favorite company to own?
Yeah, and it's definitely my biggest position too.
I wish them motherfuckers would pay out more.
I don't know if this will help them at all. I personally don't think people give a shit about, movie soundtracks. Maybe they do. I don't. I think normally the movie soundtrack stinks unless it's from like a really popular movie where they just got like all the best songs in it, which is normally not the case. But Spotify now has a Netflix hub where you can basically go and pull the soundtrack from whatever show or movie you like from Netflix, basically. Any thoughts on that, Fat Baby? It's a new feature. I don't know if it'll do. I'll never use it.
Yeah, it's just another nice little add-on. It's just one of those things where they keep building on. It's nothing too crazy, but good to see them being on top of it and taking advantage of all these different kind of partnerships where they can.
And I guess one thing from like a financial standpoint, like it sounds like it's not really, it doesn't really do anything, but by doing this, does that help them, form some sort of like relationship with Netflix, which could then turn into something more than this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of options there, and naturally podcasts could lead into video podcasts, could lead into Netflix series. There could be a tie in partnerships where Joe Rogan just stream his podcast on Netflix. Who knows what happens?
What about maybe the opposite of that? Maybe some of these Netflix produced like comedy specials, maybe they get to be on Spotify now.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, did you have something here?
Yeah. Would you guys like to guess? One of my songs has 177,000 streams across YouTube, Spotify, and all the other streaming sites. Would you like to know how much that pays?
Probably like $7, $10 or something.
So for 177,000 streams, I get $208.
Well, that's $208 you didn't have.
Yeah. So
you got to start somewhere.
True that.
Now what? I guess what would really help? It sounds like a little amount, but you're talking about one song. Now all of a sudden, you have 6, 7 songs on there that all paying out $208. Now we're getting into something a little bit. Most people have more than like 1 or 2 songs, so now we're talking.
We're gonna start coming out with some stuff soon, so we'll keep you guys posted on that.
And you have basically no operating costs because you have all the equipment and do it all yourself.
Yep, true that. So, getting the finance brain working and, cutting some corners as much as we can.
Yeah, because otherwise Spotify could be paying you out. You could be about negative $850 that's paid out instead of the negative $1,050.
Right.
Okay, so the next thing I got is our tweet of the week. I didn't find any great discussion ones. I had one from last week. I kind of found one from this week, so I'm gonna give y'all an option.
You didn't see my tweets then.
Well, we're not counting yours. I think
I'm just kidding. I was just kidding anyway.
I think I had some pretty good tweets too. My best one, I think, was somebody posted a picture of Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian.
Yeah,
and they were basically like, if Pete Davidson can date Kim Kardashian, then you can retire before 65. And I, being a smart ass I am, I got on and knowing how
something about dick size and all kinds.
Knowing how Pete Davidson is why he's dating Kim Kardashian and why he's dated all these other hot chicks because he's got a huge dong. Anyhow, I had to ask the guy, how does that factor into the calculation? I didn't know whether 65 was your baseline dick size of 4 inches or, if I have a 4-inch dick, does that mean I can't retire till 65? I just needed to know what value to put into my calculation. He didn't really give me a good answer.
Oh my God. This is definitely rated MA. This episode, I've done cussed multiple times, and
you can say.
We're talking about penises.
John, have you not watched TV now? You can say dick, and you can basically show almost all tit. You can basically do whatever you want on TV at this point in time.
Oh no, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I guess it's as long as the nipples are covered, you can show everything else.
Pretty much. But anyhow, I'm give y'all an option of what topic we can discuss, and whichever one we don't pick, we can discuss next time. So I have one here, tipping at like restaurants, that sort of thing, or I have finance as like a couple. So we all married recently, and you kind of got to operate financially,
we discussed finance as a couple before, briefly.
So we can do tipping because I have very strong feelings on tipping.
I mean, we can do the other one next time too. So as far as like your thoughts on tipping people,
Yeah, let me start like this. So
set the
this is supposed
background
to
up. Set
be
it
this is
up.
supposed to yeah this is supposed to be our tweet of the week. The guys didn't really tweet it; it was a reply to something else. It was basically like someone tweeted, what would be a red flag on a date, and this guy tweeted back that if someone didn't tip more than 30, if someone tipped less than 30% at a date, and then I was like, well, most people aren't tipping 30%. So anyhow, that just got me to thinking about tipping. So personally, I tip pretty standardly, pretty generously, I guess. I'm always in the 20 to 25 range, so to say, in that range. So I tip like pretty much everyone else. I think 20-25% is a pretty good tip.
Y'all gonna give me a heart attack.
Hold up, on most cases. So I think it's you're supposed to do above like 18 or so, but I'm normally in the 20-25 range. That's fine. I'm also not a change person, so like unless they have it where you click what percent the tip on like the credit card swipe thing, I'm giving you an even number. So if I tip you $7 and that's 27%, so be it, or if it's 18%, so be it. I'm not going to like calculate that I need to tip you $6.32 or whatever.
See, I do that to keep it even when it pulls out of my bank account if I put a card.
And I sometimes do that. So you could get either one, but most of the time I'll just, do whatever. But anyhow, that's got me thinking again about tipping, which I've always had this thoughts. And I want to preface this with I understand how hard like waitressing jobs are. And my thoughts on tipping has nothing to do with the waitresses or waiters, but the business itself. I personally think we should get out of the standard of tipping as a society. If you think about it, if you think about what other industry is the customer required to pay the employees? So like if you're working at, I don't want to call
it's not necessarily required as it is just like frowned upon if you don't. Like socially,
Yeah, but it's socially a problem because the workers are only making $2.50 an hour.
Yeah.
They're not making, so the tips are the pay to get to minimum wage.
Yeah,
so that's what I mean by that. Is it's socially frowned upon or the not tip or whatever, because if you don't tip that person, they basically just work for free. They didn't do anything.
Yeah,
so that's why I tip them as well.
Yeah, I don't like this either. The thing that blows my mind is when I think of a tip, I think of someone that's doing a job that they're getting paid for, and then they exceeded expectations to the point where you wanted to give them extra money because they done so well. That's my idea of a tip, not that it is me to pay their salary.
Yeah, which is currently in society basically in most cases, not every case. That's why I didn't want to say a particular restaurant, because there's definitely restaurants that it's not like that. But I think the same way. If you do a really good job, I'm going to want to tip you, and that money's yours. That's basically me wanting to give you extra money aside from what you're getting from the restaurant.
That's how I feel about it too.
It shouldn't be looked at as, I have to tip 25%. Basically, because if I don't, you can't put food on the table for your kids.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thoughts, and that's kind of how it's morphed. It's kind of how it's morphed into. Again, this has nothing to do with the waitresses or waiters. We think the company should be paying you the money that you would have been getting from us, and then also, if you think about it, most people would still tip. So if the waitress was getting paid $10 an hour or whatever, I would say 75% of the people would still be tipping, right? Like. Yeah, them just doing the good job. So I've tipped people the full bill before. I've tipped people like a substantial amount of money for doing a great job, but society's made it where it's like such a standard that I owe you 25% no matter how good you do. Like if you come dump water on me a few times, I owe you 20% because otherwise, I'm basically the one paying you. And to me, that's the only industry that does that. Now the counter arguments to it would be. The counter argument, I think, would basically be if restaurants didn't do that, the margin would be so low they wouldn't operate the restaurant, and then we wouldn't have restaurants. So society has taken it upon themselves to, hey, we'll pay them in order for us to have a restaurant. which that's a completely it's a good point. That's a completely great point. But I think that's on the we get on the scale of the smaller local things like that. There's no reason why corporate restaurants should be paying employees $2.50 or $3 and waiting on tips to make money. They're just you're bad in your pockets or whatever.
So something I'll mention is so some Steak and Shakes, some of their waiters or waitresses, they actually worked a position as well as waited tables. Not all of them, but some of them. Like some of them would also have some kind of duty in the back or cash register or something in addition to waiting tables. So they got an hourly wage as well. However, recently Steak and Shake went to kiosks, and no, you wait on yourself. And so you go in there, you order your food, the cooks make it for you, they set it on the thing, you get it, you self-serve your beverage, they have stuff laying out so you can get it yourself. And I actually, because it seems like it's hard to get people to work these days, I actually like that better, because if I'm thirsty, I don't have to wait 5 minutes for a waiter to get my stuff, because I have had some bad wait. I'm not just saying Steak and Shake now, I'm just saying in general, I like the idea of waiting on yourself in a lot of sense. But what I will say in relation to tipping is I don't always tip 25 or 15 or whatever percent. Sometimes, like you said, I've tipped 40-50%. Sometimes I don't tip anything, and it just so if you do a good job or even just a okay job, standard job, then I'm gonna tip. I'm gonna tip a standard amount. But if I'm thirsty and I haven't seen you in an hour and I've been there forever, I'm not going to tip very much. Now if the place is super busy and you're understaffed, I'll take all that into consideration. But if you just outside smoking on a smoke break for 30 minutes, then yeah, that's going to impact your tip. But I do like that, especially during COVID, a lot of businesses haven't been able to get people to work with, the stimmy checks and all this stuff. I do like the idea of waiting on yourself. I mean, I just want someone to cook the food so I don't have to clean up at home. And some things, like I go to a Mexican restaurant and get some food that would be just as much as if I'd done it myself, but I can go there and eat it. And I don't really necessarily have to have someone wait on me.
Yeah, and that makes sense, I think, for stuff like Steak and Shake. But there's nicer restaurants where you would want like a waitress or waiter or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it's date night with your lady, yeah, you don't want to have to get up and get your own drinks. But if it's somewhere smaller, then yeah, I like the idea of getting rid of the middle ground waiters and waitresses, and as far as, because they're not getting paid enough, and the people that are doing those jobs, they don't want to be there anyway, and they're collecting more money at home at this point anyway. Nothing against waiters or waitresses, but the ones that are good and do their job well, we try to tip them the best we can.
Yeah, and that kind of like you said, that just basically I don't believe that the customer, like, I don't know how we got to this point. And we're talking about standard waiters and waitresses that your run of the mill, like sit down restaurant. And again, we're not talking anything about waiters or waitresses. I will continue to tip you because I know that my tip is how you pay your bill. So until this, is fixed and you're actually getting paid an actual wage, I'll continue to tip you. It's just my thoughts is I should be paying the business for my meal, and then they should be paying you, basically. So, but if you think about it even more, if you go to McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever, you get food, whatever, whether you sit in there or not, the people who cooked your food, there's no tip added onto that. So it's not like, I don't know. I understand the waiters and waitresses have a lot of work because they're waiting on a bunch of different people. But say just one scenario, like one situation where this one person is, taking the food from the kitchen, bringing it to me, and then getting a drink or two twice. It's pretty easy. What makes it hard, again, is the multiple tables all at once, keeping the order straight. But just a one-to-one, it's not that much. But even further than that, I remember a story. It may have been last year. It may have been, probably wasn't last year because of COVID. So probably the year before. where this concept of, you're a scumbag if you don't tip 18 to 25% of whatever bill or whatever. I guess before I make that, the other point is we've done made like a percentage, 18, 20, 25%. I don't understand how the amount something costs that I order. There's no extra work for the waiter if I order a steak than if I order a hamburger. It's exactly the same cost for the waiter, but it's triple the price. So why is
tip you based on what I buy?
Why is it based on that when it's the same amount of work? And that goes into the story that I'm talking about. Is a couple of years ago, some like a waiter, I think at like a nightclub, basically blasted Jay-Z all over the internet. He had all kinds of people coming after him because he had a bunch of friends at the club doing that. They did bottle service, which again is, before we were talking about food, bottle service is even less work. You're popping bottles that are 10 times more expensive just because these people are rich and they don't care to pay, and you bring them, put them in ice, that sort of thing. He spent like $900,000 or $1 million for this night at the club or whatever. Yeah. I don't remember the exact numbers, but he tipped the lady like $70,000 or something, like maybe even $100,000. It was
my God! And they're bitching about that.
That was a tip, and she like blasted him online and this is like 8% tip. Jay-Z can't even tip the like appropriate 20%. It's like we're talking about. You opened bottles of Grey Goose and brought them over here, and you're complaining about making more of a tip than
she made a yearly wage. What's she bitching about?
Yeah, a good job yearly wage in one night. And obviously you work at a fancy nightclub, so you're doing that every single night with these same type of people. Obviously it's probably not as much as Jay-Z, but you're getting tips like this on a regular basis. You're basically regular person rich from, waiting at a nightclub. Honestly, because you look good. Let's be real about that. Now, this particular waitress, I am talking shit about her. Again, we wasn't talking shit about any of the other waiter and waitress. We're talking shit about this one who definitely only has his job because she looks nice, and then she's complaining about getting $70,000-$80,000 tip. But this was a couple of years ago. But it goes into like, why do we have a standard percentage on tipping? And again, we made it clear. I'm gonna say it one more time. I'm not gonna say it again. We understand that you got to make a living, and that's why I will continue giving you your 25% tip or whatever, probably no matter how good you are. Now, if you're really shitty, you might not get that. But if you're really good, you'll probably get more than that. But, I don't understand how, opening 20 bottles of liquor and bringing them over a night is worth $70,000. And then also you're complaining because he gypped you 10% or whatever. I mean, that's crazy to me. I don't know, Fat Baby, what's your thoughts on tipping? You didn't really pipe in any right there.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts, there are some restaurants that do it where they say, do not tip. We raised our menu prices to offset for that. And I think that system just makes a lot more sense. But I don't know the history of it, all that.
Yeah, so on that system, I think it does make sense because, the prices that the food you're buying are higher, but it's really the same as if you paid the tip. But you get to look at the prices and you get to decide whether you want to go pay that or not. If you don't want to pay it, don't go there. Instead of you're going to pay standard $9, $10 for a hamburger, and all of a sudden you're paying you're buying another meal basically for a tip.
Yeah, and I mean it gets a little confusing too because a lot of times people tip if the food's slow or if the food tastes bad, and that's not on the waiter.
No,
the waitress. Right. So that's where it gets a little tough. Is a lot of the tip is really based on what the chefs or the kitchen is doing, and in most restaurants, I don't think they get a portion of those tips. So it's sort of backwards to me. The incentives aren't really aligned.
Right.
Yeah, and. Yeah, kind of like you said, I guess the argument to that, if I was a waiter or waitress about the just raising menu prices or whatever, is that's basically guaranteed that you're just getting your cut of whatever the restaurant thinks the tips are. So honestly, the restaurant's probably actually making a little bit more money doing that because now they're deciding a standard amount of what you're paying. Whereas if you did wait on people, there's going to be some people who give you a pretty good tip and you're going to make a little bit more. But I don't know. I just think that's the only industry where it's like you're directly paying the expenses of the thing. And then I guess the old saying that people always say is if you can't afford a 25% tip, then you shouldn't be eating out at whatever restaurant. To me, if you can't afford to pay your staff the standard wages, then you can't afford to run a business. So I don't know why it doesn't go both ways. Anyhow, again, we wasn't this whole conversation had nothing to do with like waitresses and waiters, more of the overall business. So
just trying not to offend some snowflakes out
don't,
there.
Don't be commenting on all our stuff talking about how
we're bad
you
people.
Don't tip 20%, you can't you can't provide for your family because again, we'll continue tipping. We just think there's a better way to go about it. Basically, okay. That's all I have for the market. Before we wrap this up, it is Thanksgiving. So let's just talk some Thanksgiving food. What are y'all's favorite dish at Thanksgiving?
Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing.
No, not your favorite plate. What's your one favorite?
Broccoli casserole.
Broccoli casserole. Do you only eat that on Thanksgiving, or do you get that other all year?
I eat it. I save it for like 2 or 3 times a year. You know what I'm saying?
So Thanksgiving, Christmas, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What about you, Fat Baby?
My mom makes a really good. It's Brussels sprouts.
What are you even talking about right now?
We're talking about Thanksgiving.
We're talking about some good food. What are you talking about, Brussels sprouts?
No, I'm telling you,
Fat Baby's from
delicious.
He's from
Brussels sprouts.
the North Midwest. He ain't from the South, John.
Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, and pomegranate seeds. And it's all mixed. It's just I don't normally. It's just really good.
Is this
I only have it that.
Is this something that has a name, or is that a concoction created?
I got no idea. That's what. It's just those things all roasted or something. I don't even know how she makes it, but it's delicious.
All right, John.
And then gravy, of course. Just gravy on everything.
John, we have homework.
Now that's more our thing.
You and I will be trying this. We're going to make that's our homework. We're going to make this contraption at home. That's a very easy make. We'll make it when I come up for New Year's. We'll have roasted Brussels sprouts and pomegranate seeds.
Wow. If you would have asked me what you was gonna guess, never in a million years would I guess.
I'm telling you, it's good. I don't know, it's delicious.
John, clip that part out of the episode. That will be a tweet from the show for sure. That's the craziest answer anyone has ever gave for that question. And you can look at I guarantee every podcast in the world discussed that question, and that's by far the craziest answer that was given.
We're ragging you a little bit there, Fat Baby.
I mean, Fat Baby knows that's the crazy answer. Like, he understands that that's not like he's never going to say that to someone and they're going to be like, oh yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but gotta keep it real. Gotta give the answers. The truth.
Is it like a casserole or is it just all like loose leaf in a pot?
It's just like roasted veggies together, but then like the pomegranate seed. I don't even know.
It sounds like two of the worst roasted veggies and pomegranate seeds.
I'm telling you, it's delicious. I don't know.
She probably adds bacon grease or something.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, they poured gravy on it. He said that.
Oh, okay.
Well, mine's a little bit more normal. It's just sweet potato casserole, or like the sweet potatoes with the marshmallows on top. I feel like people do not make that enough. That seems like a dish that you could have way more than just holidays, and nobody makes that. So the next one I have is what's the most underrated Thanksgiving dish, which again, it sounds like butternut squash, pomegranate, and Brussels sprouts is also the most underrated. But John, what's the most underrated one? The one that, people won't say that's, undercover pretty good.
That's it's a classic go-to mashed potatoes. I mean,
you can't go wrong with taters.
Yeah, I mean, you have it probably with every other meal, or at least you do where I'm at. But I mean, it's underrated because it's a go-to. You know what I'm saying? Baked potato, mashed potato, French fries. Hell, it's all good.
Potato chips.
You know what I'm saying?
Fat Baby, what about you?
Maybe biscuits.
Yeah, they're good bread.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Oh, you know what?
not
There's
that you need
biscuits
another
that have the
starch with
cheese in it. You
everything.
know, like the ones
Hmm.
from where's it? Where they was it Red Lobster? The Red Lobster biscuits you can get, like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
yeah. No, I love
The
biscuits.
like
So,
cheesy biscuit
Yes,
things.
sir.
hmm
I think mine is oh hell, what was I gonna say? I had something. It's probably also sweet potato casserole.
Get this man some sweet potato casserole.
No, so at my house we have like Thanksgiving breakfast, and then we go to my grandma's for Thanksgiving dinner. Of course, they live beside each other. My stepmom's makes this like oatmeal that's like fried apple, and like it has cranberries in it, which I don't like cranberries, but it does have them in it, and it tastes fine. Um, I mean that she cooks in the crock pot like all night. It's awesome. So probably that one for me. I put out a Twitter poll um, earlier on this, and people's answer was green bean casserole, which I never heard of until I met my wife. And multiple people, that was the winner of the poll, and multiple people voted for that. And that's what if you ask my wife what's the best dish, she's going to say green bean
Oh,
casserole.
you know what? You know what else is a really good side, but it's a little different. You know, like fried squash.
I like squash fine. I like
But
zucchini
but here I got
better.
a twist. Fried cucumbers.
Fried cucumbers, like with the breading, or
Yes.
like what?
Yeah. With the breading, it's fire. Okay.
I'll have to try
It's
that. Do they
fire.
not do they get like runny or mushy in there?
No, you do thin slices, and it's nice and crunchy and crisp, and oh, it's so good.
So you know what? That actually makes sense because my all-time favorite appetizer is fried pickles. We literally made it this weekend.
Yeah, but instead of pickled, it's just
Yeah, so I love fried pickles, so I'll have to try it. I also like fried okra is good,
yeah.
stuff like that. But green bean casserole, more people know about that. I don't, like we never had that. All it is green beans. I think like cheese and like some like the fried onion stuff on top. It's pretty good, but I would never pick it over standard green beans. That must be a southern. That must be like a deep south. So she's from South Carolina, so that's probably like a deep south type deal. They have
Yeah,
like
must
shrimp and
be.
grits and stuff like that as well. And then the next one I had, the last one was on Thanksgiving. What are you drinking? So like, I like having like a hot apple cider with some like cinnamon whiskey in there, and then I also just like standard beer as well. That
I
baby
mean,
probably drinking some sort of whiskey. John's drinking Coke. We don't even have to go there.
and Coors Light.
yeah.
Coors Light, yee yee. Fat baby, what kind of whiskey are you drinking on
Uh,
Thanksgiving? Jameson.
well, normally just old fashions.
I
So
got you.
I like slow and low whiskey for old fashions, that kind of stuff. But it's more. Most whiskeys are good, or bourbon. Bourbon's usually the go-to for old fashions, but sometimes rye definitely mix it up a little bit.
I haven't got into the old fashioned game very much. That seems like the drink you do drink in the winter when you're just like sitting around the fireplace smoking cigars and drinking old fashions.
Yeah, no, I mean it's delicious. It's just whiskey, a little bit of sweetness, and some fruit. Can't go wrong there.
I hear you. Anyhow, that's our show today. I hope everyone has a great holiday. Be safe traveling. Boys, here's a fact for you. If you didn't know, the most traveled day of the year through airports is Sunday after Thanksgiving, and the most traveled day of the year by car is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So everyone be safe out there if you're traveling somewhere, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Swingin It. Follow Fat Baby Funds at Fat Baby Funds. Check out his blog. I'm sure he's going to write some twerky Thanksgiving thing there. But have a good holiday, and we'll catch y'all next Tuesday. Keep swinging it.